Many traditions seem weird when you step back and think about them for a moment. And the classic carol, The 12 Days of Christmas, is exceptionally weird when you think about it. Who decides to send a single person that many gifts, and who decides to send gifts that are just so odd? Sure, you might find some use for rings, but who wants a load of birds? And more importantly, who wants a load of leaping lords? And why are the lords leaping? Is it due to an injury? Are they being threatened? Or are they a load of historical speedrunners who believe that by constantly jumping they can clip through the calendar and arrive instantly at Whitsun without enduring the tedium of the House of Lords New Year's quiz night? So, in an effort to rejoice in the weirdness of the season, let's take a whistle-stop tour of the supremely odd history of the 12 Days of Christmas. We don't actually know the true origin of the 12 Days of Christmas. The first version we know of dates from 1780 and comes from a book entitled Mirth Without Mischief. In this book, the song is titled The 12 Days of Christmas, sung at Kim Pepin's ball. However, there is some evidence that the song has its origins in the north of England, being born from a similar carol called The 10 Days of Christmas. In fact, William Henry Husk, a collector of songs, wrote in his 1864 book Songs of the Nativity that the carol was found on broadsides printed at Newcastle at various periods during the last 150 years. But many historians believe the carol to actually be French in origin, partially because the red-legged partridge, which tends to perch in trees, was not introduced to England until 1770, and was native to France before that. In fact, the song may have come from a similar French song called The 12 Months. Over the years there have been loads of different versions with slightly different lyrics. For instance, several variants had a mother giving the gifts, and not the singer's true love. The collie birds are often switched with canaries, and a version from 1882 replaces the 10 pipers with 10 men a-mowing. In a delightfully festive touch, an 1867 variation swaps the dancing ladies with 11 badgers baiting, which is just what you want at Christmas. However, the version we know today was written by Frederick Austin in 1909. This version changed the collie birds to the now commonly accepted calling birds and added the on to the start of each verse. However, Austin's most outstanding inclusion is the sustained 5 golden rings, which is now considered the best part of the whole carol. Pretty much every version in circulation today builds off this one. So what is the song actually about? Well, some say the song is actually a way to memorise Catholic concepts. A major proponent of this theory was Canadian hymnologist Hugh D. McKellar. In a 1979 essay, McKellar suggested that the song is a catechism, designed to help English Catholics learn the faith during a period where being Catholic was illegal in England, which was from 1558 until 1829, and thus each day relates to a Catholic concept. So the French hens are the theological virtues of faith, hope and charity, and the 11 pipers piping are the 11 apostles. Though this makes absolutely no sense when you think about it, as you need to really stretch to make the days fit the concept. And well, if you're trying to hide your faith, loudly singing a song, even in code, seems like a bad way to go about it. That and most of the concepts mentioned in the song apply to both Protestantism and Catholicism, meaning that none of them were illegal to say in public. Quote historian William Studwell, "This was not originally a Catholic song, no matter what you hear on the internet. Neutral reference books say this is nonsense. If there was such a catechism device, a secret code, it was derived from the original secular song. It is a derivative, not the source." So if it is not a secret Catholic code, what is the song? Well, the answer is quite simple. It was designed as a memory and forfeits game for children, much like I Went to the Shops and games of that ilk. Each person takes a turn saying part of the list and then repeating back what the others had already said. If they fail, they must take part in a forfeit of some form. The British folklorist Alice Bertha Gome recalls such a thing in her 1898 book, The Traditional Games of England, Scotland and Ireland. The 12 Days was a Christmas game. It was a customary thing in a friend's house to play the 12 Days or My Lady's Lapdog every 12th day night. The party was usually a mixed gathering of juveniles and adults, mostly relatives, and before supper, that is before eating mince pies and 12th cake, this game and the cushion dance were played, and the forfeits consequent upon them always cried. The company were all seated round the room. The leader of the game commenced by saying the first line. The lines for the first day of Christmas were said before each of the company in turn, then the first day was repeated, with the addition of the second by the leader, and then this was said all round the circle in turn. This was continued until the lines for the 12 days were said by every player. For every mistake, a forfeit, a small article belonging to the person, had to be given up. These forfeits were afterwards cried in the usual way, and were not returned to the owner until they had been redeemed by the penalty inflicted being performed. But what do the gifts actually mean? They must have some meaning, right? No one would randomly come up with this bizarre list of gifts out of thin air, right? Well, maybe. In fact, we don't really know. Many historians have debated the meaning and origins of the gifts. For example, let's take the 5 golden rings as an example of the sheer number of theories floating around. William S. Baring-Gould suggested that the first 7 days represented birds, with the partridge being the obvious one, and that the 5 golden rings represented the 5 golden rings found on the neck of the ringed pheasant. Others argue that the line was originally 5 gold spinks, an old name for the goldfinch, though this idea hits issues as Mirth Without Mischief has an illustration of 5 golden jewellery rings accompanying the song. This means that we don't really know what the gifts mean, though the most accepted answer is that they're bastardizations and mutations, coming from years and years of translations, mishearings and local variations. So when you and your family sing together this year, remember that you're part of a long and storied tradition that is confusing historians more and more with every passing year. And really, isn't that the true meaning of Christmas?